guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a fun video. We're doing a wear test on a new foundation slash skin tint that I recently received from Milk Makeup. It's their Hydro Grip Gel Tint. We are testing this out today and we are going to be doing a wear test. This is meant to be a 12-hour skin tint, so it's supposed to last all day. Already I have some thoughts on this one. We'll get into it all in this video, and of course I will share my thoughts with you guys after the wear test at the end of the video as well. So if that sounds like fun, stay tuned. Before we get into that though, if you are new here, I want to wish you a very special welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Make sure that your notifications are turned on as well. And with that said, let's jump right into it. Okay, before we get into the skin tint, I want to kick it off with a bit of a primer. We're going to use my Milk Hydro Grip primer today. Figure why not? It's actually been a little bit since I've used this one, but I'm hoping because this is a lighter coverage foundation or skin tint that maybe the gripping power of the Milk Hydro Grip primer will help it stick to my skin a little bit better and really get that 12-hour wear out of it. Okay, so a little bit about this. This is called the Hydro Grip 12-Hour Gel Tint. So they sent me 2 shades along with a brush. I'm going to insert a close-up of the skin tint for you guys right here, as well as a close-up of these 2 shades swatched. Now I did already swatch these. They're shades 3 and 4. I can tell number 3 is going to be too light for me. I think number 4 will probably work okay for me. But just so you can see how these 2 shades compare to one another. Okay, so I want to get this right on my face. We're going to try and do a 12-hour wear test. It is currently just about 9:30, and you guys, if I'm awake at 9:30 at night, it's a challenge for me to stay awake until 9:30. So I am going to be doing a wear test today, and I will try to give this a full 12 hours of wear. All right, so we're going to go with shade number 4. I imagine I will need some concealer along the perimeter of my face. Let me really quickly read you what it says about the coverage of this. It says, meet the Hydro Grip 12-Hour Gel Tint, a clean, long wear hydrating gel skin tint with triple powered hyaluronic acid for buildable light coverage and a natural dewy finish that stays locked all day. Made in 15 flexible shades that can keep up with you. Now I imagine because it's a skin tint, there are only 15 shades, but usually with skin tints, I mean, because they're not super high coverage or very cakey, you can kind of get away with a shade that's not perfectly your match. There is an ounce of product in each little tube, and it's just basically a squeezy tube like this, which I have to say, as soon as I pulled the little foil thing off the top, it started like oozing product out of the top. So just be careful when you open it. Okay, so I'm just gonna start with a dollop on the back of my hand, kind of what I would expect to get out of a full pump of a traditional foundation. And I do want to apply it with the brush that was included. You definitely don't need to do that. This brush is basically just it's very soft. It's a nice brush. I actually love it for, not even for the Milk Jelly tints. I love it for the Makeup Revolution Jelly tint. It works really good for that one. I mean, it works for the Milk ones, but I have another brush that I typically use for it. But it's nice and dense. I imagine it's gonna work great for a foundation and probably be very comparable to something along the lines of like the e.l.f. foundation brush. So we're just going to pick that up on the brush and just start tapping it onto my skin. Okay, I can already tell this is too light for me. I really need like probably shade 5 or 6. But again, I don't imagine this is gonna give a lot of coverage. I will be perfectly frank with you guys. I would not have bought this if it was not sent to me. Thank you, Milk, for sending me. I do love Milk Makeup as a brand, and I appreciate that they send me PR on occasion. But I typically, if something says light coverage, I know just to kind of stay away from it. I know it's not going to give me the coverage that I need. This does say it's somewhat buildable, so we'll see how much this covers. Just based on, by the way, I did go in with another dollop, so that's basically like 2 full pumps of a traditional foundation. Yeah, this shade is gonna be really off for me. I'm hoping that my bronzer will be able to make up for that. I'll try to overlook that today, and I may come back another time and just add something to darken it up a bit without changing the formula too much, because yeah, I really don't like when my foundation is too light. I'd almost rather have it be maybe not too dark. I mean, that never looks good either. It's always good to get your foundation perfectly matched, which I know is difficult to do. I just feel like when it's too light, it almost emphasizes, it makes me look old and crepey, which when you are a little bit on the older side, you want to avoid looking old and crepey, because you're already kind of going that direction, you know? Okay, so there's a good amount. I did have to use quite a bit. So if you need coverage, I mean, you're gonna need to use a little bit more, which also means this is likely going to wear out pretty quick. But I will say with 2 layers on, I would say it gave me close to medium coverage. I don't think we're quite at medium coverage. I'm seeing a lot of my hyperpigmentation kind of still peeking through, but it's definitely evened things out a little bit. Finish wise, it seems nice and subtly glowy. It seems like a pretty finish so far. I don't know, guys, I'm definitely seeing some like brush marks on my face. So I'm gonna grab a clean, damp sponge. We're just gonna take this and kind of tap it. Some of those areas where I've got some brush strokes kind of go along my hairline here. I'm normally not a fan of skin tints because they are typically lighter coverage. Other than the Maybelline, which you guys know I love, I would hardly call this a skin tint. I kind of feel like that was a bit of a mislead. It's definitely like a high medium coverage, this stuff. It's one of my highest coverage foundations that I own. So I don't know, I kind of feel like skin tint for that one was probably a little bit deceiving to some people. I love that stuff, don't get me wrong. This is more of what I would think of when I think of a skin tint. So I don't know how much of a difference you guys can see versus when I started to apply it or before I applied it. I am seeing a bit of coverage. You can definitely still see my big mark right here, and I'm still seeing some of my smaller areas of discoloration are peeking through. We're gonna apply some concealer to those areas. I'm gonna try not to overdo it with the concealer though, because I really wanna see how this wears throughout the day, so I might just have to allow some of those things to show. That's not that big of a deal to me, and honestly, if the color matched me a little bit better, I'd be much more fine with that. Just trying to cover just the spots that are really prominent. By the way, the concealer I'm using today is the Revlon Flex Concealer. I have light that I just applied, then this one is light medium. I'm gonna go just where I need it. Actually, I'm gonna use a brush for my concealer today because I typically get better coverage with a brush, and I do need that coverage in those spots. Just have a pretty finish. It's a very pretty, subtly glowy finish. It's not overly, it doesn't feel dewy on the skin. Like it feels like it's set down, but it looks pretty. Has a pretty nice soft sheen to it. Now I can tell that coverage wise this likely won't be a major win for me, but what I'm looking for throughout the day, just to kind of see how it wears, because I know some people don't need very heavy coverage like I do, and they like something that's more of a light medium coverage. What I'll be looking for today is seeing how this maintains its coverage, especially like on my forehead where I have really soft discoloration. I don't have any prominent spots on my forehead, but I have this like veil kind of under the skin of subtle hyperpigmentation that a lighter coverage foundation will cover pretty well. So I'll be checking my forehead. I'll see how it settles into the lines on my forehead. I'm gonna see how it settles along the sides of my nose and mouth where I have larger pores and have some smile lines, just to see if it holds up there, if it settles anywhere, and see if I have any coverage left at the end of the day. Even some of my higher coverage or more medium coverage foundations, they do lose some coverage throughout the day. On a typical day, just with standard wear, my skin never looks perfect by the end of the day. So I'm very curious to see how something with such light coverage will look, if I just will look bare skinned by tonight, but we'll see. We're gonna give it 12 hours and just kind of see how it holds up. So there it is with concealer. I tried very hard not to over apply concealer. I'm seeing quite a bit of things peeking through that I'm tempted to cover up, but I'm just gonna leave them there. Likely you're probably not seeing all of those on camera. The bright lights do me a lot of favors in covering up some of my discoloration, but I'm also gonna try not to powder everywhere. I'm gonna powder my eyelids, and then I think that's it. I don't want to powder anywhere else. I want to see how this sets without using a powder. Instructions don't say that you need to powder it, and I typically go lighter on the powder anyways. This is just the e.l.f. Halo Glow pressed powder. Just going to apply it to the eyelids. There we go. Very pretty finish. Wish I had more coverage, but I do like the finish. Okay, let's finish off with my bronzer and blush and highlighter next. For that today, I am going to use a powder bronzer. Let's use the Milani Silky Matte bronzer. This one is in shade number 2. Use quite a bit of this because I look very pale and scary right now. If you guys saw my arms, I don't know, see how different like this is to this. So I'm gonna put a good amount of bronzer on and really spread it out quite a bit, more than I typically do. A little bit to my neck and kind of the side of my ear. Okay, that might even be too much. Oh boy. It was good to build your bronzer up, Mandy, instead of just going in full ham on your first dip. I think sometimes when I use this bronzer, so I had shade number 1 for a very long time. That's how I had to use it because that shade was so light for me. So I really swirl my brush in there just to get it to show up. And I sometimes forget that this one's not that light. You gotta be a little more light-handed with this one. Oh, I also wanted to let you guys know I should be getting the new Natasha Denona palette here any day. I know I may have said recently that I wasn't gonna buy any more of those mid-size palettes, but I felt it my duty to do it and compare it to some of the other ones I have. I will be honest, if I wasn't filming YouTube videos and doing beauty content, this one I would have definitely skipped over because I have some berry toned and pink toned eyeshadow palettes from Natasha that I really love and I feel satisfied with, but I'm curious to see how close this one compares to those. I know those videos have already been done by a few people out there, but as one of the resident Natasha Denona channels here on YouTube, I felt I owed it to my viewers to give my opinion on that one. Okay, I feel like my face is already looking much better. I'm just having to blend a lot because I went a little heavy-handed initially. I'm gonna go with my sponge and just kind of, I went in a little far with that bronzer. So I was trying to spread it out and blend everywhere. Just gonna tap around those edges a bit. Okay, now for some blush. I wanted to jump back over to the LA Girl On Cloud 9 Bouncy Blush. I have talked about the bronzer, I tried it out. It's a very cool tone for my liking, but I do like the formula and I like the blush even more than I like the bronzer or contour in here, but I haven't tried it out for you guys yet, so I thought we would do that today. Just gonna tap into that. I've just got an old Real Techniques blush brush right here. We're gonna just start applying that right to like my outer apples, just above where I put that bronzer, kind of over the top of that bronzer. Let's pick out a highlighter. Today I'm gonna just go with my MAC Double Gleam. It's a good classic. One thing I love about Double Gleam is you don't need to apply very much because it's nice and bright, but it's kind of sheer. So it looks a little bit more natural. Okay, the face is all done. Let's jump over to the eyes really quickly. I think probably what I will do, I'm just gonna take my Coral Me Maybe palette right here. We're just gonna apply this. I will kind of do that off quietly in double time. Maybe I'll insert a bit of music just to speed through this review video. All right, my eyes are all finished. I even did my brows. Last up, let's just finish off with my lips. Let's go with this. I'm gonna take the Natasha Denona I Need a Rose lip liner in the shade Calla. Just do a little bit of an overline with this. I should probably, oh, I've got one more use before I can sharpen. Do you guys do that? Do you like hold off with your higher end ones that are more expensive? Do you hold off as long as possible before you sharpen them because you see all that waste? I may scratch my lip with the edges of the liner, but it's fine. I'm saving product. Let's add a lipstick on top of that. This is Flower Beauty Peachy Nude. And then finish off with a gloss. Let's go with Peach Ring from Maybelline Lifter. Okay. Here is the completed makeup look. I will just give you my very first impression. I don't mind the formula and I don't even necessarily mind the lighter coverage, but the shade match, because it is too light, I look a little bit sickly. It's definitely lighter coverage. So if you need something that's more medium coverage, I don't know that this is gonna quite cut it, but we are going to wear it throughout the rest of the day. It is currently almost 10 o'clock. I will try to check in at about 9:30 tonight. So we'll be close to 12 hours. I don't know that I'm gonna make it a full 12, but I will try my very best. I usually fall asleep reading to Charlie at night, which we usually start reading at 8:30. We're reading Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban right now, but I'll set my alarm to wake me up in case I fall asleep and try very hard not to put my face in the pillow. So I will see you guys tonight. We'll see how this wears and I'll give you my final thoughts then. All right, it's 9:20 p.m. so it's been just under 12 hours since I first applied the skin tint. Ignore the hair, I'm kind of a mess right now, but let's just analyze how things are looking. My skin never looks good after this long of a day, and I actually don't think it looks terrible, but I did notice there are a couple areas that it just looks particularly bad, and that's just between my brows and right where my pores are on the side of my nose. This doesn't seem to sit very well on top of large pores. So if pores are an issue for you, you might have an issue with this. Again, this is just my experience with it after one day, but other than that, it actually looks pretty good on the perimeter of my face. Again, the coverage of this wasn't amazing, but it wasn't as bad as I was worried that it might be, as far as me just feeling comfortable and how I looked throughout the day, knowing that I normally like such a high coverage foundation or a medium high coverage foundation. So if you don't like that much coverage, if you don't have a ton to conceal or cover, you just want just like a very soft evening out, something that's a little bit glowy. If you don't have large pores, I think this is something that you would love. I couldn't help but think of this as I was checking on it throughout the day. Not that I hated it, but I didn't love it, and I was just thinking to myself, my 20 or 30-year-old self probably would have loved something like this. But as I've gotten older, pores have gotten larger, a lot more lines have appeared, a lot more discoloration has appeared. Something like this for me personally is just not really my cup of tea. So that was kind of my experience with it after 12 hours of wear. I will keep playing with it and kind of combining it maybe with some other things, see how it works as a mix-in with higher coverage foundations. I also am going to try mixing my shade number 4 with something a little bit darker, because I do think that if I got the shade match a little bit better, because this seemed a little bit light on me, I might like it a little bit more. One more thing that I did notice, I do have a little breakout right here under my nose. Now, nothing else I used on my face today was new, so that's something I will also keep an eye on. My skin's not super sensitive. I don't break out to things super often. There's no guarantee that this is what gave me that one little breakout. I mean, it's possible that, who knows what could have caused that. It's just a tiny little one, but if, as I keep playing with it, I notice that happening again, I will keep you guys posted on that. So those are my thoughts on the Milk Makeup Skin Tint. For me personally, I would probably give this like a 6.5 out of 10. That sounds a little harsh, but again, I kind of knew that going into this, that this really was not something that was suited for what I typically look for. But I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done that yet, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Time to go wash this off. My daughter turns 8 tomorrow, so I have to run upstairs and play birthday fairy as she falls asleep. Oh, birthdays. I love birthdays. I love making birthdays great for my kids, but man, it's a lot of work.